what makes someone when we go into a room actually command the room? Like what is that? It's when they're actually aligned in their mind and their heart and their soul and their will. Like when you are in alignment in all these places, um, that's when your energy essence, you're leading the room by that. And it really doesn't matter what strategy, what words you're using, because you're in alignment. It's just like you're in conviction.
You have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggles, stories, and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. Downloadable audio episodes can be found in the podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. We are locally underwritten by the Bank of Sun Prairie, Calls on Call Extraordinary Answering Service, as well as the Bold Business Book. And today we're welcoming / preparing to learn from Tammy Cho of Path to the Heart. So, Tammy, how is it going today?
It's going very well. Beautiful weather over here, James. I'm so delighted to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, I'm excited because I know NLP is a part of what you do, but just for the audience here, how about you let us know what is Path to the Heart?
Yeah, I love to. Path to the Heart was essentially, yeah, birth from up above. I was going through my own healing journey, and it, really literally downloaded into while I was in the retreat, sitting there, that I meant to do this type of work. And, that really instigated a lot of it. And in addition to me being on my healing journey, is a big part of what I support, entrepreneurs through. Um, and so for myself, maybe I'll start with a bit of my story, if that's okay, James.
Sure, by all means, please.
Yeah, so I was a nurse for about 20 years, and I essentially, went to work one day and I had heart palpitations and chest pain, and I was having a hard time, like really hearing sounds around me. My ears were getting fuzzy, and I had this metallic taste of fear in my mouth. I was like, oh my goodness, am I having a heart attack? And that day I ended up being wheeled off to emergency in front of everyone at work. And yeah, and so there was like no turning back then. And at that point, like I knew I wasn't doing well and all those kind of things. I knew I was losing ability to concentrate and all these things. And when I couldn't really get myself to let go at that point. I kind of knew intellectually what I needed to do. I even got a doctor's note to actually take time off, but I was so overcommitted and to everyone, the doctors and the nurses, the patients, and all those things, that I couldn't emotionally let go. And so that was a big part of my path. And that burnout essentially slowed me down, but it didn't really land within myself until I had my first daughter. She was 6 months old, lying down on one of those baby Einstein mats. And James, for the first time, she hit one of those dangling toys for the first time intentionally, right, as a 6 month old. And I just looked at it and I couldn't connect to any joy. And it really, honestly, if it wasn't for this community nurse that was actually visiting me at that exact moment, witnessing this and pointing that out, like I wouldn't even notice how disconnected I was to my own child, and so in that moment I realized I was turning into, my mom, who had physically abandoned me at 20 days old, but then I was replaying it at emotional level, and that really woke me up to really start my whole healing journey, and the birthing of Path to the Heart. And yeah, like that was the instigator, because literally there was no one in my family that was in business, so I was really breaking through a lot of things. But essentially at that point, obviously I went to do all the therapy. I started investing in a lot of personal development. Literally had a workshop every other week or something like that. And I tried to master the mind. I actually learned NLP way back when, trying to figure everything out. And of course, the answer is not in the head. And I ended up going into, discovering energy work. And I did a variety of modalities, from Reiki, became a shaman at that point, bioenergy, healing, all these different things. And when I was going through all that, like I felt better because, underneath everything was like, I was struggling with anxiety and depression and things like this. And I felt better. And yet, when I noticed I wouldn't exchange healings, with other healers, which I was doing like 2 to 3 times a week as a way of practice and everything, I noticed everything was still there, James. And when that happened, like I realized that I need to look a little further into the truth here, and so being the truth seeker that I am, I kept on going, and I ended up attracting into my life 4 years of emotional and spiritual healing. And I came across something called psychosomatic therapy. Long story short, this is a study of the body, mind, heart, soul together. Prior to this point, I was essentially doing things in a box, trying to, heal myself, so to speak. And yeah, psychosomatic therapy essentially was a study of all these parts as it's expressed through our physical face. So I'm not sure if you read my bio, but I'm a face and body analysis expert as well. Help people with worthiness, with leading their energy leadership, I like to call it. And this is where I help people see through the physical features of their face how to identify, invisible blocks that are in their way, where places that they're not looking, that is really keeping them out of alignment for success. Places that they may see themselves in a very disillusioned way, because the left side of our face is the private world and the right side is our public face. So it's very interesting what transpires when we look at the truth, and our body doesn't lie, James. So that was a long, convoluted way of sort of, this is how I came to be doing what I love. I believe this is a big part of my purpose. And there's always, challenges and loopholes that I've learned now to use my own face and body to navigate that. And so yeah, thank you for the space. And I'm curious what's coming up for you, you, James.
Yeah. Well, you touched on a lot of things that I want to address. Initially, the first one where you're getting wheeled off to the emergency room when you're a nurse, what did they attribute that to? Was that stress? Was that, I don't, just help me out
Yeah,
with what is that? Because it sounds
for
like you're pretty
sure.
young when that
Yeah.
happened.
So yeah, well, I was essentially going through a panic attack, and panic attacks could
All
feel
right.
very much like a heart attack. It felt like a heart attack when I was going through it, let's just say. But essentially, it was a panic attack. It was you call it a stress attack, but essentially it was a panic attack. And yeah, for those that don't know, right, sometimes I think that, it's very obvious when you're definitely going through a panic attack, because it's um yeah, definitely something's wrong.
All right.
And
So,
yeah,
can you attribute that to things that were going on in your life at the time?
you know what? Like I was this high achiever. I was that person people came to for help. I put a really strong mask on. I was highly competent. I was a patient care leader at that time. I worked at bedside all the way up to overseeing a hospital. And yeah, I knew that I wasn't necessarily doing well, but I was putting on a strong front and very much wearing that mask that so many of us do. And often that same mask is what is keeping us from what we want, is what I'm discovering as I'm helping people take off the mask they wear. Very interestingly enough, through face analysis, right? And so yeah, this is a place like that. I knew it was happening. I just couldn't get myself to let go, because who was I if I didn't do all those things I've been doing forever that brought me significance, brought
Yeah.
me, income, blah, 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 whatever you want to call it, right? All those things that, make us feel important, you know?
There's a time in my life, I don't even want to say it was past, it's probably present as well to a point, though not as much, as I've gone through my entrepreneurial journey, where you feel like you're pushing so hard, but then you
Mhm.
feel like you're pushing hard against a wall and the door is 3 feet to your left. And you could just walk through the door. Why are you pushing so hard on the wall when you could just go through the door? So I understand what you're saying, where you're like pushing and driving, I'm doing all these things. And to what end? You're pushing against a brick wall. It's not going to move. But you feel like all I
Yeah.
have to do is push harder. And you get stuck in
Yeah.
that I guess it's a prison is what it is, I guess.
It is exactly. And I think you worded it really well with the sense of a prison. It's a self-imposed prison that unfortunately, when we get super stressed, it's like we have tunnel vision and we only see what's in front of us, task, 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 and, this is, everyone says to slow down, smell the roses, and that we need to take time off to rest. And sometimes when we get into entrepreneurship, right, we're on the grind, because there's like, feels like there's all this competition out there, you got to make ends meet, and all these things, like try to be your best self and use your gifts, all these things, right, that we go into entrepreneur for, to share our ideas and such. And it's easy to lose ourselves. Um, And what I find is with a lot of the high achievers I work with, they are not, they don't necessarily know who they are. I know that sounds interesting, but yeah, they don't know necessarily what they actually want because they haven't ever been asked that, It's like you're going by what you think you want. And I go through my layers of this. Like these are one of my challenges, right? And it's like, but there's something powerful about the pause, and when you are able to pause and go deeper than just pausing, right? Is that you're able to uncover truths, that are highlighted, whether that's through our face and body, but through our heart and intuition when we allow that to unfold. And I think that's consistent piece that needs to be nurtured regularly as entrepreneur because you're not, there's no one else. You don't have a boss. You're it, right?
Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, you got to create that CO time to see the bigger picture and to really step back. Um, and one of the things I ask people to do is like, really whirl back from the situation if you're feeling stuck or something, right? To actually, back away, whirl out, and literally move your body until you're out of the situation, looking in at it to really get an observer lens on it, right? And oftentimes that allows you to realize that, okay, I just got to take a break now sometimes. And sometimes it's like, oh, yeah, I don't need to do that. The door's right here, as you said, right?
Yeah, it's
So,
interesting when you put yourself in that place where it's almost like you're watching a movie and what do you hope the character does when you're the character?
mm,
So it's interesting to step out and just look above or just outside of what's going on. So like
yeah,
if you were going to give that person advice, that character advice, or what do you hoping happens?
yeah,
But you get
yeah,
to live it.
totally.
So hopefully you take your own advice to a point.
Yeah, and we're our best coach, and I think that's one of the hats you take on going into entrepreneurship, learning to be your own coach. I mean,
True
obviously
story.
there's
Yeah,
there's value. There's value in obviously hiring a coach that you just can't see what you can't see. And yeah, and then there's a place where literally you're learning how to coach yourself through the day, some days, and sure you can relate to that, right? And
absolutely.
yeah, and I think that people like thinking about going onto entrepreneurship or in it, right? Sometimes we maybe forget the personal development or the inner growth work. And with myself working with energy leadership, I learned that everything that happens outside of us is a direct reflection of what's happening inside, whether you're conscious or unconscious of it. And it's like just it's a way to live that I feel very empowering to be able to see that.
So in the case of you ending up in the emergency side of the hospital,
Yeah.
do you feel like if that would not have happened, where do you think your life would have gone?
Oh my goodness. Like I think I would still be depressed, anxious, and unhappy, feeling really empty. Like essentially, when we don't address things, we're recreating the same thing with different faces. So yeah, I would feel I would still be, pushing out, for example, my husband. Like he loves me, yet I was like creating all these arguments between us. Like so one of the things I learned with the whole side of face and body analysis, but the sense of energetics is that when we push away knowing ourselves deeper, we're also pushing away all those things we want outside of ourselves. It's actually
No.
a direct reflection. So, a lot of another way to place this language is our ability to receive, because there's a place within ourselves. When I work with a lot of my clients who are high achievers, they haven't ever learned to receive deeply. It's often they need to slow down, take care of themselves, go to gym, eat properly, blah blah blah. That's very different from receiving because you could be eating and not be fully present. You could
Oh,
be
1,000 times
exercising,
over. Or at least
right?
3 times a day. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like you'll be going through the day doing things so that you can get back on the grind is very different from the energy of actually sitting there and letting yourself actually feel in your body. And that's what it is. We get into our mind, we overthink, we judge ourselves, all these things that keep us stuck as entrepreneurs. And one of the reasons is because we're actually not in our bodies. Because in order to receive and feel and all those kind of things, we kind of need to be in our body. And so that's a really important piece that I see, a repetitive pattern, if you will, again and again, with entrepreneurship. And you will find that if you actually give yourself the place to slow down and to do inner work on a regular basis. And actually process through things, that you'll see, the problems are no longer there anymore. Like it'll start to dissipate because when you're holding on to a certain amount of I don't know, let's say stuck emotions, then it takes away the space for you to actually comprehend, receive whatever that is. And you can never see out of the situation more than that energy level, so to speak. So once we, unplug or remove some of this, uncover some of the unconscious blocks, if you will, then oftentimes it opens up someone's energy to receive. And I can literally, show this when I measure my clients' energy field. So they see how their thoughts affect their energy field, which is, the aura around their body. And also I help them compare that to, for example, they want to make this much, in their business this year. And I get them to actually get into the embodiment, and I test their energy relative to how they respond to something positive. And we actually see if they're actually open to receive
Oh,
that,
interesting.
what they say they want, you know? So yeah, I try to make it as tangible as possible because I understand energy is, not something we see.
No, not
Um,
directly.
yeah, not
Absolutely.
directly
Yeah.
anyway, but we all feel it. If we, look under the microscope with our thoughts or synapses, it's electrical impulses. Our emotions are essentially energy in or out of emotion, right? And very much, with body, mind, heart, soul, all of the information from intuition is often, images and things like that as well. So yeah, we are vibrating balls of energy at the end of the day. So I think we got to learn how to navigate that within ourselves and to lead that.
True story. It's interesting. We were just in Vancouver by you,
Okay.
and we were
Yeah.
staying in Chinatown, and
Mm.
my niece suggested this faux bowl thing. I never had this before,
Okay.
but it's essentially a bowl on a gas stove, and then you cook your own food.
Oh, is it like hot pot or pho?
Pho,
Okay. So
pho.
yeah, I mean
Yeah,
maybe
I'd
it's
never had that before, and it turns out
oh,
she's like, "This is awesome," but it turns out she'd never had it before either. She just saw it online, which is funny because we're like, "How
yeah.
are we supposed to do this?" And she's like, "I don't know." So, anyways, the interesting part there to relate to what you're talking about is that you didn't just get a meal, chow down, move on with your life. Because the meal you had to cook and you had to figure out what you're going to order. They bring it to you piece by piece. And it was very, well, I guess it was almost ceremonial. So, where that was, instead of it just being a 20-minute meal, we were there, I don't know, 2 hours, something like that. And it was
Yeah.
interesting because you're cooking the stuff and you're trying to figure out, does this go with that sauce or whatever? And it's an event instead of just feed the
Yes.
body so that you have the fuel to just move on with your life. And it was not planned. So we're just there with this group of, I don't know, we have 6 7 people, and
Hmm.
we're there, and it's like, okay, we're doing this. This is our thing. We're taking the time to figure this out. And it was actually neat because I realized for a split second, for a moment, like, oh, this is going to take some time. And we weren't in any rush. I mean, it was rainy and gloomy outside, so it's not like you're going to do anything out there, anyways. And it was a new experience. That was cool. But it was just the taking the time. And that was is a great means of taking time to eat in this case, to just actually enjoy the stuff bite by bite, try and do things. And yeah, it was cool. Forced forced tranquility, I suppose, for lack of
Yeah,
a better
and I
phrase.
really yeah, thank you for sharing that, James, because I think it's a great analogy, right? Of like, first of all, it's going unplanned because a lot of times we're thrown in business-ish, create the business plan a bit, right? But oftentimes if we let ourselves just explore and, live the adventure, and then also like figuring out the ingredients of like, how do I like this? Like, what makes me happy? And like, how about if I do this strategy or that strategy, it's really like a big bowl of soup, and like you got to give yourself that mindset of
Yeah.
like giving yourself the space and the time to really explore that. Otherwise you rushed and go, you missed all the good pieces, so to speak. So anyway, I just thought that was really beautiful. That kind of came to mind for me as you're speaking about that.
Yeah. Tell me about measuring energy.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so well, I spoke a little bit about it, but essentially, if let's say, you were my client, and I would do a little bit of baseline where you're at kind of thing. Because a lot of people come to me when they've done all the mindset and strategy pieces, and they still feel like they're hitting this wall.
Okay. And
And
this is through
so
questions, or how do you get the baseline? It's not like you're hooking
okay,
probes up to people or anything, is it? Or maybe it
no, no,
is. I
no.
don't know.
Yeah, no, I would essentially help someone get really clear, first of all, what are their goals?
Okay.
And I get, because some goals they have quite a bit of attachment to them. So I chunk it down to, one um aspect of energy, so to speak. Like, so if it's money, so if they add the word I'm open to receive or something like that, then that could affect the result. So I help them get really clear because sometimes the challenge is the receiving and not the money, for example.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I chunk things out according to, what I see, because a lot of goals, they end up being really long. So yeah, and so I just essentially I would measure you just neutral, like you just being here, and I set the intention, you set the intention to let me measure you, and essentially I use my tool. I actually walk far away from the screen, and then I walk towards you and see how your energy field opens up my equipment. Sometimes it actually closes and sometimes it's open. So it's really interesting. And then I get you to think of something negative now. So I have the baseline of neutrality. And then I get you to think about something negative, get into the state of feeling it in your body. So it's as accurate as possible. Then I measure you to see how your body responds to that. I write that down, and then I measure, you shake that off, and you get to get positive and think about something good again. Yeah, get into the state, and I measure it, and I write that down so that I have a baseline. I'm not sure if you've done any other kind of energy measuring tools, but
No, no,
essentially
not
some,
at all.
okay. Yeah, yeah, there's a few out there, but I like this particular one because it gives me your baseline, how you react based on your baseline, or how you react to positive and negative situation within your body, right? So, and then I test the three goals, and essentially I see how their body reacts to it. So sometimes it closes to it, sometimes one side of it closes to it, sometimes it opens far away, sometimes it opens like it doesn't open. So it just gives me a lot of information and a way to measure where someone is at. And energy is always, moving and fluctuating. So that's why it's like, oftentimes people come to me when they've been stuck at something for a while, is what I notice. And so usually it's been something that has been consistent for them. And so that's what we're measuring. So did that answer your question, just to give you a bit of a
Yeah. So
snapshot of that?
is this happening in person or this is remote, just like this podcast here?
Yeah, just like here, like essentially,
Okay.
so I mean, a lot of my clients, I mean, over 90% of my clients are actually international, so
Okay.
they're not in person. So, but I did this in person before, definitely works as well. But energy is not location specific. It doesn't
Right.
need to be. Yeah.
And this is a physical tool that you're using?
Yeah, yeah. Just
Okay.
it's just something metal that can transmit not transmit energy, but like process energy, so it is not affected
Okay.
by equipment.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's been extremely accurate from what I've been able to witness in my practice. Um, yeah, and I think that there's different, muscle testing tools out there and things like that. Um, like a very basic one, you could put your hands, index finger, your thumb together, and you literally just kind of test, like you say your name, and then you try to break the um, fingers. But if you're saying something that is truth, it's not gonna break. If you're saying something that is like, my name is Bob, it weakens
Huh.
the link. So that's a simple one that some people use, except that sometimes depending where your mind is, I notice that it can change the result. So you got to be surrendered and not attached to the outcome. And sometimes that's hard for people to do. So that makes it makes it changes the answer, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your kid, when they hit that thing and you didn't feel happiness. How long ago was that?
Yeah, she's 15 now.
Okay, okay, so it's been a little while. So now if she does
Yeah.
something, I don't know, drive well. I don't know, something
Yeah.
where you should feel happy. Now, does happiness
Yeah.
just come?
Yes, yeah, because I mean, obviously I did a lot of my work, inner work, part a lot of
Yeah.
my journey was I gotta be the leader I want to be, so that is a big part of my journey. And it's like I think people that have known me in the past and see me now, I'm just a completely different person. I wish
Oh,
I'd prepared my pictures to show you because this was who I was when I burned out, and I look so different. And my skin color, my lip shape, my eye shape, like it's totally shifted. And
really?
that's
Like physically?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So I mean, it's kind of cool, coming, from the background of being a nurse and then also doing analysis, seeing how much power we have to shift our circumstances, but also our body is quite interesting. So what I do is that, before I start with someone, I also do a face analysis at the very beginning so we can identify everything. Um, and a lot of times I do it at the end and I help them see what has shifted in the work we do.
Huh.
Having said that, it doesn't have to be like at the end of the coaching package. I've had people that just had a face analysis, and it really depends where you are in your personal development and healing work, whatever you want to call it, empowerment work. Is that she was struggling. Her voice was definitely really raspy. Her lips were quite thin, and it just spoke to places of where she wasn't fully expressing herself in business. And it's not that she wasn't able to speak on a live. It wasn't like she was shy. It wasn't in that essence of how we connect to it. There was actually deeper places within her that what is represented on her face is not only mental, but is emotional. And a lot of people run away from emotions. We like to move towards pleasure and away from pain. That's
Yeah,
just
sweep it
how
under the
humans
rug where it
work.
belongs, right?
All right. Yeah. So unfortunately, it builds up,
Turns
Yeah,
out.
and that
Yeah.
yeah, and that's what shifts our face. That's what creates actually how our body looks. Like why someone has more fat in one area, for example, it's like indication of how much they're protecting that area. Or the amount of muscle in one part of your body speaks to how much you feel like you need to protect that area. So it's quite
That's interesting.
interesting, yeah,
Yeah.
how that all it actually, everyone's body, sometimes I sit there at a coffee shop and, unconsciously I just look at, people walking by. It's so hard not to like, read someone's body sometimes. But I try to keep the boundary because this is someone else's space. But yeah, this is a place where, you can see that in everyone what is happening. And so when someone pays me, I kind of look a little deeper, of course, and help them see themselves because it's not about what I see, it's about how you see yourself.
Oh,
And my job is to uncover those emotional blocks that are silently draining your energy and your authentic confidence. Like I wore that mask that I was really put together, and in reality underneath I wasn't feeling very good about myself. And there's a lot of people doing that out there. It's part of what society kind of like, you know, fills us up to, so to speak. That's how it should be, kind of thing. And I think it does take a certain amount of leadership to go against that. Yeah, and so it's quite amazing just in my face and how, that person I was talking about with the expression, how her lips actually got more red, actually increased circulation to her lips. It was a week later, she got the comment, are you wearing a new lipstick color? She's like, no, I'm not. And it's like she
wow.
realized like her lips were more red and it starts to fill out. And so she was working on all these things within herself. So it shifted really fast in one session. But yeah, like definitely when I do a before and after with a client, we can see specifically what we're working on in our time together. And that part of the face is directly correlated to that shift on their face. So that's really
Huh.
cool, right?
Yeah, it's incredible. Tell me
Yeah.
when you so that time with your kid hit the thing you don't feel happy to now. What is
Yeah.
the time frame where you're like, all right, I can feel happiness without having to actively decide I'm gonna feel happy? Like was there a
Oh,
moment or was it over the course of time of studying all these things and these retreats and things like that?
oh, well, I mean, it wasn't like one session, I wouldn't say. I mean, initially I went through the traditional therapy route. I didn't find a lot of success there.
Okay.
um yeah, I found that's why I was drawn to the whole energy because I noticed people who are, empower, well, work with intuitives, like people that are really in tune with energy. I found that because I had a lot of trust issues back then, I couldn't actually let someone in unless like I don't know what it was. I just had issues letting people in. And intuitives kind of know, um, they kind of know how you feel. They can feel you, I discovered I was empath as well, actually, after unraveling things within myself, that I can feel other people's emotions if I tune into it. And so, yeah, I think I was drawn to that because I needed someone to see me when I wasn't willing to see myself, and I couldn't let anyone in. Like I remember going to
Oh.
see a therapist, right? And I could, because I had pretty strong intuition that I wasn't aware that I could see someone hasn't gone through what I gone through. I wouldn't, like, I didn't have that trust. Like, so a part of me was, I don't know, protecting myself, but another part of me was also like, I was not letting people in to help me. So it was one of those things. And so when I was working with people that, that was their skill and they owned that as their skill, that really, really highly supported me. And honestly, James, if I were to let you know, like, it really wasn't, any particular tool that supported me. It was really how much um, love, energy that person held. I know that sounds
Oh.
really odd, but
I could see both ways, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, like I mean, I can logically get these answers. I knew intellectually what I needed to do. Like again, with like when I burned out, I knew what I needed to do. I'm smart. But it was emotionally, right? And that was it. Like I emotionally, part of me needed to actually feel safe enough and for someone to hold me enough, like to the extent, like this is what that um my teacher ended up being my teacher, my mentor, right? But they called me in and said, we feel, Tammy, you're like on this verge of like opening up, your heart, so to speak, because back then I just had it really closed up. And we really want to gift you another session, right? And anyways, I went in for the session, and I didn't know this, but it was their wedding day. Now this is a man, and
This is your teacher's wedding day
yes,
or
yes.
your
And
mentor's wedding day?
so
Wow. Okay.
yeah, and they were getting married. And I was so blown away because that's how much they cared about me, that they would, because then they're like, oh, can you do this day? I can't remember exactly how that exchange went, but I'm like, well, yeah, I'm free this day, so it was their wedding day. I was so shocked and I was so touched. I just couldn't, I was so shocked, and my heart had to open and let them in, like, and it wasn't easy. I mean, I had to let go a lot of anger, James, like honestly. But it was like I needed that. And um as a nurse myself, um having worked with clients that had really extreme high blood sugar numbers, they've learned from everyone up the yin yang what they should be doing, but they're not doing it. And I was able to bring their numbers down, and they literally said to me, James, like, the reason why I didn't do this all this time I did with you is because I could tell you care about me. And that was the biggest reward. Like, they have specialists saying, like, who's this nurse? Like, I've been working with you for so long. Like, why has she been able to do this? And it literally, it's not that people don't have the smarts to mentally do what they need to do in life, whether entrepreneur or health or whatever, right? It's that it's like that hidden confidence. They don't feel like they deserve it.
Fair.
And that's the other side of the receiving piece,
You
like,
mentioned that worthiness. I think that was the term that you used,
yeah,
right?
yes, yes,
So tell
yeah,
me a little bit more about that.
yeah. It's, there's a difference between, we use confidence very interchangeably, and, confidence is something that you can, get better at a skill, you don't feel good at public speaking, you could build it up and get good at it, right? And then you get confident in that skill. But my experience is very different from worthiness, where you're good enough just as you are without doing another thing in life. There is like an innate, like, I'm worth it to be here, I'm worth it to speak. It just and it's just a part of you that doesn't question that, you're um your enoughness. I know it's hard to like really word a feeling, but feeling like wow, like I'm like this amazing ball of love, or whatever. I'm like this amazing like human, and I have so much to give, um and I feel that way without having to actually do something. I am just being that. And I think this is the experience that a lot of people who are on their own, you know, spiritual journeys, is often you hear people talk about this. And it's actually the same journey. Personal development, spirituality often leads to a very similar feeling. None of us actually arrive. We're all human having, a spiritual person having a human experience, whatever you want
We
to
get
call that, right?
Nirvana, right?
But there's that authentic confidence, and I speak about a lot of this on my podcast, Authentic Leaders Rising, is that embodying our authentic energy leadership is that when we actually remember who we are out of this like body, and really the trueness of who we are. And that's what I love about that work, is I'm not just like, who are you, right? We're actually going deeper into the layers, and it's like this energy essence of who they are starts to come out, and it's like it filters through everything you do. um I've been in a call with a client, sorry, a potential client, where I was out of integrity, right? I was like leading this client into a particular thing I was selling at that time. And she said that, I feel like you're leading me to something you want me to lead versus what I need.
Oh,
And in that moment, I shifted my energy. I was like, yeah, you know what? I checked in with myself. I wasn't like offended. I really honored her for speaking truth in that moment. And I admitted, I'm out of integrity right now, and you're right. And I said that, and I go, may I just like redo this? And I just, I came from a place of like surrender and care and accountability. And she ended up deciding to work with me. And it's really being able to go to a place within ourselves that we're shifting our beingness or essence, that transforms our every experience, actually is creating our life, actually. Like that's
mm,
energy leadership. And we're in and out of it sometimes, but it's like, we aim like anything to be our best self most of the time. I like to
right.
think, I like to
As often as you
create that.
can. Yeah.
Yes,
You
yes,
aim for
right. And
perfection, but if you get pretty good, you're doing better than most. Probably.
yeah, yeah, I always tell my daughters, don't aim for perfection, aim for permanent. Like, create
Oh,
that.
interesting.
Yeah, so I've been trying to change my language around that, for my daughters, because I know that in my upbringing is all about you got to be perfect. So that's why I wear that mask, right? And
Hmm.
I don't want to create that with my kids. I want to create something different.
Yeah.
Um, teaching my kids, like you got to feel your emotions, and all these kind of things. We try to be the, give our kids things that we didn't get,
Right.
in many levels, right? So
Yeah. If they're anything like my son, they get a sweet, sweet life and they have no idea how good they have it. But it's,
yeah, yeah, I guess that's the other side of the problem as parents, right? It's like learning the necessary learnings of grit as
yeah.
well is
Yeah.
definitely lacking, and that's the culture, it's unfortunately. And that's probably another story and on another podcast, but it's really real, so
Fair. Tell me
yeah.
about, you said, did you say energy leadership or emotional leadership? I think it was energy leadership.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you're saying both of those, because essentially energy leadership a lot has a lot to do with emotional leadership. Like I mentioned, it's like emotions, it's really something, whether we cry, for example, that's energy and motion. When we really let go of emotion, right? In that moment, we're having the argument with our wife or our husband, and you choose to be vulnerable and you let go. It kind of feels like that, letting go. Yeah. And then the moment where you're holding on, it's like, I'm right. Whatever that is, right? So you can see one's in motion, one's out of motion. And it essentially is energy leadership, a lot of the time. It's our ability to be in a state of being that we choose versus one of the past that we're holding on to.
Okay,
Yeah.
so not a reaction. It's more, this is what I'm going to be, do, feel right now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of energy leadership, it's of realizing that a lot of our past is creating our world if we allow it. And so it's really conscious energy leadership, but it's also partnering with our unconscious.
Mm.
And I like the saying from Carl Jung is like, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will run your life and you will call it fate. Um,
Oh yeah, I forgot about that quote. Great quote.
yeah, yeah, I love that quote. And it's so true. That's so true. And so I feel like what I want to, message out and bring to the world is the importance of really partnering with our subconscious. And the beauty with NLP is that it does have practices to support that. NLP is not the only one, but it's the most structured one for people to learn from
Very
that I've
good. Yeah.
seen. Yeah, but there's, all these different ways. It comes down to our intention, right? How we choose to lead that, because energy follows our intention and our attention and all those wonderful things, right? And so, yeah, um, just want to make sure I answered your question.
No, the only, I guess, digging into that a little bit deeper, the
Sure.
leadership portion of that sounds like it's leading yourself, not necessarily leading a crowd or other people.
Yeah, I think with my type of work, I do work with people, community leaders, entrepreneurs that see themselves as leaders or emerging leaders, even, right? And there is a place that it is self-leadership that is running our lives. And I think people call it business, they call it parenting, whatever we want to call it. We are a leader. And until we actually put intention to see it that way, and to lead from our authentic leadership, aligned to our values and all those wonderful things, like we tend to like slide off of it. So, you know what I mean? It's a different intention, it's different energy using the word leadership versus mothering. I just
Oh,
feel
gotcha.
it's
Okay.
different, like parenting. Like I'm running my business. Like, are you a leader? You better see yourself as a leader. You're the
You
leader
better be.
of
Yeah.
that business, right?
Yeah, you don't want to be a
Um,
follower if you're the one in charge.
yeah, yeah. And there's things in that like leading and learning to allow people to follow you. But for at the end of the day, we need to model what we teach, right? And I definitely aim to do that. And aim to be permanent in that.
Fair.
But yeah, and so it is a self-leadership piece, and how perhaps this is my nursing lens in it, right? The body, mind, heart, soul alignment is that what makes someone when we go into a room actually command the room. Like what is that? It's when they're actually aligned in their mind and their heart and their soul and their will. Like when you are in alignment in all these places, um, that's when your energy essence, you're leading the room by that. And it really doesn't matter what strategy, what words you're using, because you're in alignment. It's just like you're in conviction and authentic confidence, right? And so that to me, right, that's what I strive for. The part that is also often missing is the heart and the body, because we live in a society where people are walking around disconnected with their bodies, unfortunately. Chronic disease is on the rise for a reason. Um, and and so there is a place where sometimes we are being confident. I mean, well, I should say going about feeling confident, to the extent that we know, right? But our embodiment, like your shoulders are definitely like rounded in like this, or like, the way you're walking, your feet is not straight. It's kind of off an angle. It's actually unconsciously, you're still replaying old patterns. So there's
Oh.
something to be said about like being in touch with your body, realizing when you do this actually over time, you're causing pain in your body, but you got used to it. So you're kind of holding in the amount of fear, also that affects our ability to receive more in life. So it's aligning the body, to be more in alignment, versus letting maybe a younger aspect of yourself replay that in your body, right? And so it's like then that's where mindset, right, linking in with your embodiment, with then you're feeling actually another more depth, let's just say.
That makes
And then
sense.
whenever you work through more of the emotional and in your body, it's inevitable, if that's your intention, to be more connected to your soul and what actually matters to us. Why are we doing this anyway? You know what I mean?
What's it
Like,
all
so
for?
why you wake up one day, it's like, why am I here? I'm so sad, and midlife crisis, whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's because like that disconnection has come like full force. So yeah, if we could definitely live from a place of, with consciousness and awareness at that level, um, I feel like that is true leadership.
Tell me,
So
let's shift.
yeah,
Okay, let's shift gears into the facial reading. Is that what you called it?
yeah, face analysis, we could call it.
Face analysis. Okay, help me understand what that is.
Yeah, for sure. So like literally every feature on your face speaks to what is happening, like your face and body actually. It's speaking to essentially your whole um thoughts and emotions. It's your emotional history, like the way your ankles, one ankle is like maybe thicker than another in size, to the way your ankles are shaped. It's all built from when you're a child and emotional experiences that you created at that time. And also how something is built in your embodiment. I mentioned about the muscle tone to protective tissue, how where that's located indicates, what kind of childhood you had, right? And it's creating our physical features on our face. It speaks a lot to our personality and how we um, empowered ourselves to be living in life. Someone with a round face would definitely have um, more of a softness, gentle kind of person, whereas someone that has more rectangle or straight lines, they're more logical. They like the facts. Like to be practical, right? So it speaks to different personality aspects. Um, each facial structure speaks to a we do use chakras as well in face analysis, but it's the accuracy of bringing the intangible to the tangible together through the face. It's amazing. I would say it's 98% accurate from what I've seen in my
Wow.
work. And sometimes I don't know the person, I just tell them what I see, and most of the time they're blown away. Or it's like sometimes it's like language can only filter out so many because yeah, like it's like saying things different ways, it would support someone and how it fits with their language system in their neural dynamics and how they process information. So there's a bit of that aspect as we learn in NLP. So with your face, I mentioned this a little earlier, how the left side is our private world, and the right side is the public face, what we show the world. And often when we look at a face, we're not thinking it's really off center or anything like that. But because I'm doing that analysis where I literally do face splits, I put two left sides together and two right sides together, and I see how someone relates to themselves. Even before we start, I ask them, when you took these pictures for me, what jumped out at you? What did you like? What didn't you like? And I like to ask that just before saying anything, because this helps me see where are they in judgment of themselves, where are their strengths and what they appreciate, in the sense of their strengths, right? I also get them to tell me what their intention, what they want to uncover, for example. And it's a very varied intention, but often, what they need to hear will come up. So it's really beautiful in that sense. And it's a lot of people finish the face analysis and they're like, wow, I feel like I was here hours or something, because it's like
Uh,
it's so you're literally going into yourself. And I'm holding the space for someone to drop from their head into their bodies, because otherwise it's just like any quiz you take online, right? It's more mental than you're actually getting into your body. So yeah, those are the kind of pieces I speak to, and I essentially see where are you not allowing yourself to be yourself, your authentic self, you know? And I've had some clients actually, like, we look at baby, like younger pictures, maybe not baby picture, and we see like, is there something significant with your adult face and your kid face? Yeah, like, and sometimes it's like, is this a conscious choice? Or
oh,
did you not want that to change, because then when you know what different features mean, then you could be conscious about it. Like, is that something you want to return to? Like, obviously not, well, youthful, not like, you could go back, turn back the sands of time per se.
yeah.
But
Do
I
we get
will
more hair?
say,
Is that
yeah,
an
yeah.
option?
Yeah, but like even like, women care about the clarity of our face, and that has a lot to do with our level of self-awareness. So when we do the more inner work and process through things, right, you start to see a glow through someone's face. Like
All
people
right.
notice that, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so things like that. So it's just really unconscious, but it's all sort of written in our face and body. And my job is to help someone sort of fall in love with their authentic self, I like to say.
Nice. So
Yeah.
I like that phrase. Fall in love with your authentic self. That's cool. So when
Yeah.
you are doing this reading, is it from a picture or is the person just staring at the camera and you're like, okay, do you have a
Well,
whiteboard or something? Or how are you? Tell me about the
well, thank
logistics. I'm looking at this
for
I'm
sure.
trying to look at it so logically that maybe it's the wrong way to look at it, but
Yeah, yeah, you do have the face structure for that, but it's all good. You have a bit of mix. But um, but yeah, I actually get someone to send me pictures. Thanks to COVID, I thought that I could only do this in person,
yeah.
but thanks to COVID, I explored and ventured into my little soup. And yeah, I essentially just do the face splits, and then I actually walk someone through a journey on a PowerPoint with the pictures they send me. I usually want to obviously have the most present picture because, if you took something, you could have went through something, your face does change. So I like to have the most, up-to-date information, especially if you're going through something and you're wanting like to speak about something specifically. Then we could do that. And then if we want to compare, then we could do that later. But yeah, I usually just take the most present photo and I send instructions on how to take, the side views, the front view, make even light, all those kind of things
Okay,
that
so it's
affect.
multiple.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then and so I just prep the presentation and I essentially do my thing. Um, but I also ask for your birth date. Because it's a little bit of numerology as it pertains to how it shows up on your face. And it's so interesting, James, right? Like, let's say I do your birthday, and there's three numbers that I speak to. One is your personality numbers, and then the last one is your soul number, kind of like your purpose number, so to speak. So whether you believe in this or not, I could tell you that it's very interesting that when I go through the face analysis and I see where someone struggles with challenges, where their strengths are, what's going on, with the part of the face maybe they don't have a liking to, and then we look at their numbers, it's like exactly the things that they're having challenges with is actually part of their life path to live their purpose out.
Mm.
So it's so interesting. That aligns in that way. And then you can see from that, like, okay, well, this is what you came here, well, if you believe in this or not, but I've seen enough stuff to know that there is more than one life. But anyways, because our body actually holds more than this lifetime, it holds past lifetimes. That's
Okay.
another topic on another podcast, but but essentially what I'm highlighting here is that it's just so interesting. What is pertaining, what we see in the body, what challenges we're struggling with, is what our soul came here to learn so that we can live out our purpose. And um, even in the sense of, looking at someone walks, I could see if they're actually walking in line with their purpose and on direction with their purpose. And this is another piece of the body, mind, heart, soul alignment that I speak to, is that if you think about it, if your foot is, walking, let's say, usually you think your feet is straight, but if you look, a lot of people don't have feet straight. They're different directions.
No, you look at
And if you
footprints in the snow and it's rare that they're pointed straight.
Yeah, yeah. And so if we keep walking like this, you're never actually going to arrive to your sole purpose, right? And so and if you walk like this, you're going to have knee problems and hip problems. So it's all connected, the body, mind, heart, soul. Like whether you're on purpose, whether, your mindset's aligned to, what your heart wants, to because when we live so aligned, we feel fulfilled. I'm not sure how you connect to that yourself, James, but it's when we feel like we're making a difference, exercising our highest gifts, we feel happy,
Absolutely.
joy,
Yeah.
fulfilled. Ideally, we align that in our business, right? Yeah, and so those are the pieces, is that when we're out of alignment, it shows in our body. It also causes physical symptoms. So literally, our physical symptoms that are expressed to our body is telling us we're out of soul alignment.
Mm.
so it's actually all related. So whether, life is made perfectly, whether you're someone that's attracted to more the physicalness of like maybe seeing a doctor, or, maybe seeing a naturopath, like you're trying to better one part of your life. And then some people, they're working on the mental or the emotional, right? And all these kind of things, soul. But actually, what if we align them together? Because they actually connect together. Like if you have a physical ailment, it's trying to communicate to you what's happening. Are you connected to it or not? Are you ignoring it? It turns into dis-ease. If you're ignoring that, you're ignoring your sole purpose, you know? So yeah, it's interesting, right? When you start to look at things this way.
Oh yeah, it's all
Yeah,
connected.
you could have good health and be happy and make a difference doing what you love, all those wonderful things. So I think that's the best way to live. Once I realized it, and my soul path, I had to go through all this stuff, and pain and all these things in order to arrive to my soul's journey, right? So yeah, it's just
That's
perfectly
kind of the
imperfect.
that's the game though, isn't it? It's rare that somebody just shows up and has it all figured out if they
Yes.
haven't gone through anything where they had to earn it, essentially by going through that pain or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we definitely need to be molded to some extent. We need to discover and learn things. And so, yeah, having that mindset though, right? Like realizing that, everything bad that happens is actually a realignment journey to bring us back to self. But then if you never have that intention of coming back to self, it just feels like isolated events of bad things happening to you, which
Right.
you can mindset your way out of it and think positive all you want, but you don't have the intention to align yourself and to bridge that. Life is going to feel a little bit disconnected.
Totally.
So that's the difference too. So
Totally. It's, I guess for me personally, the challenge that I find is that there's an awareness that it's all connected, but sometimes it seems like it's so, I guess from a logical mind, you can't see necessarily directly how it's connected. So you're
mm,
thinking, oh my gosh, this is like playing chess where I got to be 6 moves ahead. I'm just gonna do whatever this easy thing that I know and I can see and it's tangible and it's arguably easy instead of trying to figure out what in the world there's all these moving pieces and try to
yeah.
I guess that's I guess where my headspace gets oftentimes or it's just you get in this whirlwind. You're like, I don't want to
Mhm.
be in part of that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's where like the alignment, grounding, centerness, like however you want to call it, like coming back, like that's your base. Like you always come back to that. So even though if you fall off, you could come back to it faster and faster. And I think that's the piece that is needed right off the bat. That's why I start with the feet. I start with teaching someone how to walk differently again. Because you got to be in your body and into ground, being grounded. And it's not that, people aren't grounded. So I go according to, where people are living from. Like, everyone's on a different journey at the end of the day. But yeah, that centered and grounding and alignment right off the bat is helpful to start with. And then, yeah, and then we sort of navigate according to, the needs of what your goals are. But yeah, like that's what I don't know your connection to that piece of like centered and groundedness. What is that comes up for you when I speak about that?
For me, what comes up, I used to be a mechanic way back when. And anytime you had an electrical gremlin in a car, the joke was that it's always the ground. It's always the
Ah,
ground. You got to find where the ground is. And it
yeah,
was one of those things where you'd end up finding, in the case of a car, you'd find something where a mouse ate through, or the ground strap just rusted through, or something like that. And all of a sudden, electrical gremlins are gone. So, and I think that's a good analogy for
yeah.
being grounded because once you get that figured out, stuff just works better.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just coming back to center and then realigning all the other parts. Then it becomes easy when you can see it that way. And even like, going out there one day, I don't know what to do in this situation, just gonna like center here, go for a walk, you set the intention, and this thought comes up about grounding the electricity. There's no problems, right? And anyway, I'm just saying that like just setting the intention and going out for a walk, oftentimes the answer is going to come in. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's really beautiful how metaphorically, it's really how the universe speaks to us.
Right.
So
Very
it's,
true.
yeah, right. So it's quite beautiful if we think
Yeah.
about how so much, we have access to so much when we are grounded and centered. So
Fair. So true.
yeah,
So true.
yeah.
So, Tammy, where can people find you?
Yeah, you could go to my website, Paths to the Heart, like exactly how it sounds, like a walking in a path to the heart, but pathtotheheart.com. And I also have a podcast if you want to follow myself. It's called Authentic Leaders Rising, as I spoke to that a little bit earlier. Um, and just email me, Tammy, Tammy at pathstotheheart.com.
Nice.
So yeah.
Tell me, where did the name Path to the Heart come from?
Yeah, that, whenever you start a business, like, what do I name myself? And literally that is just something that dropped through one day because I knew it was something to do with the heart. A lot of people talk to me and they say I emanate this sense of passion and they feel very safe around me. So I really wanted to fit into my energy branding, so to speak. And yeah, so it kind of just dropped through. I'm walking people literally on the path back to their heart. So
Nice.
there's no special other meaning besides that. So
No, that's enough. That's
yeah,
it doesn't have to be
yeah,
earth shattering or anything. And in this case, it almost says exactly
seems
what it
perfect,
is. So
right?
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
I do, out of curiosity, when you mentioned working with therapists, and now that can be a just ongoing and not necessarily solving the problem. Not saying it
Mm-hmm,
won't work for everyone, but for a lot of people, you
mm-hmm,
just see like I've been in therapy 20 years and whatever.
mm-hmm. Yes.
So with something like what you're doing, from my point of view, and you can totally correct me if I'm wrong, because I probably am. I feel like there's a beginning. This is where we're at. This is what we need to do to get to where you're going to be. And from that point on, as long as the person does the things where they know what to do, they're cool. They don't have to see you indefinitely. Is that accurate? Or is this more, you may not need to see
Um,
you as often, but it's still, you got to do your push ups kind of thing?
yeah, and I used to call myself a healer. I don't, technically I'm a psychosomatic therapist, but I link in healing with coaching because what I see is some people get stuck in healing forever, but they're not taking action.
Oh, yeah.
And
Play the
it's
victim.
a yeah, and it's a bridging of the masculine and feminine energy. And so for myself, I'm helping people be the best version of themselves.
Hmm.
So it doesn't necessarily all about emotional healing. There's the step one is healing big T, small T trauma, different mindsets connected to that, you know, soul alignment pieces. And then there's the leadership piece, energy leadership, I like to call it authentic energy leadership, where we literally learn to actually fall in love with ourselves and lead from that place.
Hmm.
So there's actually two aspects. Because yeah, you get stuck in healing, going to therapy where you're talking about all the time. Trauma could be healed in an hour, right? I mean, everyone's different, but I'm just saying, like, because some people think they need to go therapy forever. And then there's some people that go coaching and they push themselves to limits. Nothing's working because they didn't fall back and do the emotional work. So it's really, I like to do it as a bridge with the body, mind, heart alignment. And I just trust my intuition to guide me. Hasn't failed me yet. So I'm gonna
Nice.
keep on doing that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. Tammy, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a delight talking to you, James.
Yeah, it's been enlightening because I want to say that I dare consider myself to be more, I don't know, less, well, I mean, argument could be made that I'm less spiritual than I would like to be, or even should be as far as that goes, because you get so into systems and processes and even body. I like to work out every day, blah, 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 all that stuff. And the
Beautiful.
spiritual stuff is just like, yeah, whatever can hang on while I'm going, that's going to be there. Instead
Yeah.
of, um, instead of really pursuing or building or growing that, I guess. So it's always interesting to talk to someone who's in a position or profession doing what you're doing, because then it just reminds me, oh yeah, there's another facet of life.
Yeah, James. And I would say for you that you're probably already living your spirituality to some extent. It's just that you haven't found the words to ground it to express it for yourself. That's what I'm sensing for you. One of the other things I do is human design, and it's like the energy blueprint, purpose stuff that the stuff you can't explain logically, but when you hear it said to you, you're kind of like, yeah,
All
that's how
right.
I felt when I got my human design. So yeah, you're just based on seeing your facial structure, you're fully expressed. You have so much like grounding in many ways to that. And I think it's just like little pieces of filling in the blanks for you. And then you're like, okay, got it. But anyway, that's what I sense
Onward.
for you.
Sure. Fair. I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
This has been Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings us the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumph and successes of business owners across the land. I got my face all messed up there. Woo! My name is James Cademan, and Authentic Business Adventures is brought to you by Calls on Call, offering call answering and receptionist services for service businesses across the country on the web at callsoncall.com. And of course, the Bold Business Book, a book for the entrepreneur in all of us, available wherever fine books are sold. If you're listening or watching this on the web, if you could do us a huge favor, give it the big old thumbs up, subscribe, and of course, share it with your entrepreneurial friends, especially those people that may need a little grounding, I guess, for lack of a better word there. Is that safe to say, Tammy?
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
All right. We'd like to thank you, our wonderful listeners, as well as our guest, Tammy Cho of Path to the Heart. Tammy, can you tell us that website one more time?
Yes, it's a pathtotheheart.com. Look forward to
Awesome. And that's all one word, right? No dashes or spaces or
That's
anything?
right. All one word, just pathtotheheart.com. Yeah.
Doesn't get easier than that. Past episodes can be found morning, noon, and night at the podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next week. I want you to stay awesome. And if you do nothing else, enjoy your business.